Welcome to another episode of Vicarious Insights Learn with Me, the podcast where we delve into the diverse world of disability services, bringing you insights from professionals, parents, and individuals with lived experiences. I'm Jace, your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We've got Lucie Tursicova. Lucie is a dedicated therapist at Eucalypt Therapy, specializing in trauma-informed therapeutic interventions. She provides support in areas like psychotherapy, behavioral support, and educational support. Lucie brings a wealth of experience to her practice, having also worked at Headspace, where she supported young people with their mental health and well-being. Her approach is personalized and compassionate, aiming to foster personal growth and resilience in her clients. Hello, Lucie.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. I see you've done your research.
A little bit. And a quick one. So, Lucie, so for the listeners, we are going to get in today. We're going to be talking a bit about bullying. But first, we want to get to know a little bit about you and how it is that you know some stuff about this. So could you tell us a bit about what got you into the industry?
Oh, that's a really good question. I originally started in IT and then realized that that was not where I wanted to be. And I was working in a bit of a spicy part of IT. So I moved into human services and I really wanted to work with children and in child safety. So I worked in child safety and child protection space for about 7 or 8 years, Jace, and I was mainly working in that investigatory space. So investigating cases that would probably lead to a criminal conviction in regard to what was going on with those children in that family. And then I saw that within my time with child protection and child safety that the mental health needs were not being met for those young people, and having that kind of trauma-informed care and trauma-informed lens for young people, and you saw it time and time again with these wee ones. So I decided to kind of pivot my practice into mental health. So I worked as a mental health clinician and I was the clinical manager for two wonderful headspaces, both in Dubbo and Beaudesert, and I worked with lots of young people. I've predominantly worked in rural and regional areas all around Australia, so that's been pretty awesome. And now I have my own private practice. So I'm a mental health social worker. I'm also a registered specialist behavioural support practitioner, and I'm currently a candidate to do my doctorate in arts, specialising in psychology. So that's me.
Wow. Oh, definitely a little bit different to IT.
A little bit, yeah. So I was working in digital forensics and mainly within those spaces where children were being harmed. So
Oh,
just kind of made me pivot to a space of going, oh, I just really want to protect children. I really want to be in that space of protecting children. So I feel my career has kind of done the whole arc of, going from child protection to now protecting our young people within their mental health space. But now I don't just see young people, I see people from 0 to 100. So I don't really discriminate with age anymore.
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I could imagine. I would imagine doing the IT stuff there. That would have, um, you wouldn't have had a choice. Seeing that stuff, you would be like, right, how do we put an end to it?
Yeah. And it was, I guess, when you work within the criminal justice system, a lot of the time it can be quite disheartening and disenchanting sometimes when, you're working within that kind of psychological mindset of, the bad guys go to jail and the good guys get justice. And unfortunately, it's not like Law and Order SVU. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So yeah.
They don't divulge all of their secrets in the last 12 seconds. No. Credit
No.
fund. That's not happening. No.
I really wish they did, just put them in a chokehold. No.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I will keep my feelings out of this. What I think should happen there. So looking at your practice, I see you do a few different things. And from what you just said there, now you got a few. So something that in the industry, there's terminologies and there's words that we all use a lot before getting into the industry. These words I've never heard of, and I know that some parents out there that have all of a sudden got a child that has needs in this world. Some of these words are new. So you have trauma informed psychotherapy. So how
Yeah.
would you describe trauma informed?
So that was a really interesting master's and a really interesting journey I went in when I decided to be a trauma informed psychotherapist. So I guess essentially the framework there is we believe that I guess the behaviors that are presented and the way that we respond to things is purely because of the things that have happened to us. So those impacts that have happened in our lives will create this space of how we will respond to that. And sometimes that can look a little bit maladaptive, shall we say, or that can look a little bit scary, or that can look a little bit defiant. I love that word when they say that young people are being defiant. And it's kind of like, well, how are they? I guess it's how they express to get their needs met, you know? So it's kind of like what has happened to you has led to where we are here. But the Masters of Trauma Informed Psychotherapy was actually designed for psychiatrists and GPs to become more trauma informed within their medical practice.
Mhm.
So it only opened up recently to allied health professionals, and I was only one of a few allied health professionals. A majority of people were medical doctors that were in that master's project. And it was interesting to see how doctors approach certain things with a completely different lens or a completely different framework, that like they don't really understand much about attachment, or like how the impacts of trauma can impact people's general well-being or mental well-being or even their physiological well-being as well. So it was a really beautiful process to go through that master's program and seeing all these light bulb moments of people who are very, very high up in their medical, career. And I don't know about you, Jace, but I'm one of those people that are quite intimidated by medical doctors. So being in that space and being in that room with them, and them like really learning and absorbing all that really beautiful stuff that I guess social workers have known for a really long time. um, yeah, it was beautiful. So yeah, and it kind of gives me faith in humanity that doctors like want to know about you and what your story brings to the table in regards to your general health. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I tend to do that sometimes.
Did you tend to make? I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Me, not so much. That's why that's why I'm questioning you guys. You guys know more. It's good. Um, there was another interesting terminology that you used on your website. I had a quick view there before, and I'm guessing and I'm filling in gaps, but I think it's what I think it is. It sounds pretty good. Is carer assessment.
Yeah, so we do, so being for obviously from that child protection space, we have a lot of need, I guess, to assess like new foster carers within the space, and child safety officers are so busy. It doesn't matter what state you're in Australia, they're always under the pump. And to be able to do those really robust, I guess, care assessments to make sure that we're sending these really vulnerable little young people that have lived a life, that have seen things that no one should have had to be exposed to, and just to make sure that those people that we're sending them to, can be that lighthouse, can be that one fixture in their life that is going to be good, that is going to be, their guiding light to come back to safety and security and love and care and support. So I'm really passionate about that space. I'm really passionate about finding really good foster carers for people, and doing those really thorough, probably intrusive assessments there. But
Yeah.
I also do parental capacity reports. So the other side of the coin, where we're assessing, how baby can go home if there has been a level of unsafety and a child has had to be removed, like really assessing mum and dad and going, hey, look, I know that this has happened and I know this is probably the worst time of your life, but we're really going to have to work on how we can show that we can keep baby safe if baby can come back to you. So working on those really nitty gritty things about, how we show that we can create safety within a home. Yeah. So no, I'm really passionate about that space, and I'm I guess, come from it from a very judgmental free thing. I guess I've seen a lot within my career, Jay. So being able to go, okay, yeah, what's happened, and we can't change the past, but also a lot of this has to do with your upbringing, your attachment to baby, also just being in a really crappy situation. Unfortunately, some parents start off behind the 8 ball, so like being able to show and guide them about how we can be better and how we can create safe space is really important to me. Yeah.
And
So
that's a tiered sort of system, like you're working through going, okay, cool, we're going to get to this
yes.
benchmark, then this benchmark, and you're going to be helping them along to get into that as well.
Yeah, I think in child safety space, we're really good at going, hey, this is what's gone wrong. And this is why baby can't stay at home with you because it's not safe. Anyway, see you later. Like it's not, it doesn't really have that flow on, Jay. So to be able to go, yeah, okay, so we understand why baby wasn't safe now. What can we do to improve that? What can we do to improve safety? Because we do know that children have better outcomes when they are with mum and dad, if it
Yeah,
is safe to do so.
if it
But
is.
I don't think we're very good with, like, I guess, increasing that parental capacity, because unfortunately child safety, they have to be in a reactive space, but they also really don't have the time to sit down with mum and dad and go, hey, this is what we're going to do moving forward, and this is what we need to see from you. So it can be a bit clandestine, and when parents are left in the dark, they're also very like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what's expected of me as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow, there's some big conversations there too, isn't there?
There very much is. There very much is. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess like when I look at my body of work and what I offer within my company, it kind of separates into three big spaces. Obviously, mental health is the big one. So I, see people under a mental health treatment plan, or see them, for play therapy or music therapy, or, that real big trauma piece of work. But then obviously there's that child protection space as well, creating parental capacity, assessing really beautiful carers, making sure our wee ones have the trauma therapy that they need when, unfortunately removal has happened. But then there's obviously my NDIS side of it as well. So working with people who do have that psychosocial disability or even physical disability, and how that's impacted on their mental health or their behaviors, and what they're trying to tell us through those behaviors, and how we can adjust that and move them in a more gentler direction. So I guess it's really hard to describe what we do at Eucalypt Therapy, because it is such a broad umbrella. And I guess, Jace, I'm also that sort of person that's like, I could do that. I could do that. So it has kind of turned into this really big beast. And my wonderful husband is the head of English at a fancy pants school, and he does all these beautiful trauma-informed educational
Fancy
plans.
pants.
And
Sorry, I had to laugh.
so he, like, I guess, obviously being married to me, he has a different lens of what education can look like as well, and being more individualized with application of education, because one size does not fit all. So yeah, we do a lot.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
That's when it all starts from, well, not all starts, but yeah, a lot of everything stems from what we do and what we learn in school, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of potential there. Uh, there you go. And you just ticked off my other little questions there too.
I'm jumping ahead.
And that's good. That's good. And usually, so I will try to have questions ready to go, but most of these we've gone off conversationally,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's the point. So it's to make sense. And you're in Southport, Ashmore.
Ashmore,
Ashmore.
yes. So
Yep.
I've moved from Southport to Ashmore. We've got our own little clinic now, and it honestly is my happy space, Jace. I'm in the clinic now, so I just sit here and just kind of accept that vibe.
So it's a comfortable place to be. That's
It's
that's
a
that's an
beautiful
important thing.
place to be. Yeah, yeah.
So getting into straight into with into the bullying.
Yes.
The bullying. So this is where I'm at, the clientele that I look at, most of the guys that I work with have experienced it at least at some stage,
Mm.
to varying degrees, but it seems to be a very common strain. And I'm like, the more I can know about this, the better I can assist, or better I can know how to act in the right situations. To,
Yeah.
as you're talking about with the trauma informed things like that, knowing it's like, well, hang on, if I can nudge you this way, or if I can say something that's really right that you can think of later on. Uh,
Yeah.
Know anybody that's listening, maybe the parent or a support worker or a nan or a pop or somebody that's going to be interacting with these guys, who wholeheartedly just want to fix the bullying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we do it?
Mm.
So that's the whole question. How do we do it? Uh,
Oh, easily,
yeah,
easily.
easily. Yeah.
I just kind of wave this magic wand and bullying just kind of disappears. I think that's what we do. But it's really interesting, Jace, because I guess my question for you was like, what got you interested in having the conversation about bullying, and like, you seeing it all the time, and you working within that like personal training fitness thing within that NDIS is, you're already working with such a vulnerable members of the community, and like giving them that confidence and that, self-belief, is kind of 90% of the problem here, right? Like they need to know that they can, exist in a space of, and be confident. So, and bullying is the complete opposite of that. It tears people down. It's tearing down their self-worth. It's tearing down their self-confidence. And I guess we'll talk about why I believe that people do that.
And that's what you knowing why something works. For me,
Yeah.
this is why I'm doing the podcast. Is for me, if I can understand how the cogs over here are working and
Mm.
why that's making this happen over here, then I'm going to be better over here because I understand that. So with that, what getting down to the nitty gritty of why is the bullying happening,
Mm,
and,
mm.
and
And I
that's
guess also why, like, how it affects our young people so much more. And I always talk, like, obviously predominantly my career has been working with young people, and it's taken me some time to realize that, children do have that level of sensitivity to rejection, and if you've got neurodiversity on top of that, that rejection is going to be higher. But I'm always quite curious, Jace, to be like, well, why? Like, why is it that the way that it is? And the best way it was described to me was like, okay, so I say to the young people, like, okay, so you're 14 years old, all right? If you were in caveman times, depending on whether you're a male or a female, male caveman, you would have had your caveman wife, and caveman wife's in her little cave with all your caveman babies, and all the other wives are in the cave, and they're all looking after each other, and they're all looking after the babies, and they're all applying their mothercraft. And it's not just looking after their own babies, they're looking after everyone. So you're a community. And then the males all go off and hunt gather and kill saber-toothed tigers and bring that home to the women, But they do it in a tribe, they do it in a pack. So when you're in your tribe, when you're in your mob, when you're in your community, you have safety. Okay. So Jace, you're a little caveman, and you've got your little caveman wife, and you've done something so terrible that they're going, Jace, I don't think you can live with us anymore. I think you need to move out. Jace, unfortunately, if you went out on your own as a caveman, you'd die. You can't exist in the wilderness by yourself, all right? So the brain hasn't really developed much from that space of equating rejection with death. So for young people, when they're going through that caveman brain stage of their development, right, they really do equate rejection with death. If I'm rejected by my tribe, I am going to die. I am not going to survive the winter. Okay. And even rationally, we know that that's not true. But there's this beautiful part of our brain back here called the amygdala, or our survival part of our brain, that is sending off those signals like, Jace, you are not going to survive the winter. You're not going to survive the winter. So bullying in teenage kind of years, or in those formative years, hits so much harder. because there's that part of our brain that's going, we're not going to survive this, right? But then bullying kind of stems from a space of, I guess, the continuation of perpetration. Okay, so when we work with perpetrators in psychology or social work, and we see them enter the criminal justice system or we see them enter jail, we always know that they're going to behave in a way to kind of be top dog on the field for their safety, right? Like they'll go in there and they're either going to be physically violent towards someone to kind of assert dominance, or they're going to do something else of another nature. Okay, but it's all to assert dominance within that space. And you'll look back at that and go, okay, well, what's this person's history? And it's going to be, I'm trying to create a space of when I felt the worst in my life, when I felt the most powerless. And that's either by the time where I was physically abused, where I was abused in other ways, or if I was very, very verbally abused or neglected. So bullies within their tiny little, adolescent brains have probably experienced a moment in their life where they haven't been in control, where they haven't had a safe place to put their feet. And unfortunately, Jace, hurt people. So they're trying to establish a space of picking on someone that they believe is more vulnerable, to kind of explain the reason why they're hurting in their heart, why they're feeling the way that they do. But unfortunately, we know that when we hurt people, it doesn't take away that pain, it doesn't take away that trauma, and then we're just making someone else feel horrible. And unfortunately, at the moment with bullying the way that it is, we can't escape it. Like back when I was at school, you go to school, experience bullying, you can go home, that's your safe place, right? But kids are experiencing bullying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They've got devices. People can access them on social media. The bullying never stops. There's never a safe place for them, all right? So I guess it's that, and I'll talk about obviously what we can do afterwards to create that space of safety. But, when we've got kids that are never going to feel safe, like what, it can be fatal. Bullying can be fatal for our young people. So it's something that we need to be taking seriously and understanding why the bullies are behaving the way that they are, but also making them accountable for that behavior and what we can do moving forward. So
So I got brought up with old school. I don't know. It probably gets frowned on now, but you flog the bully. You and that's not always viable. I remember when I was young, I moved to a lot of schools. So I went to a new school, and a couple of kids, I still remember their names, and they started trying to bully me. I remember one day I was running away from them, they were chasing me, and I was like, why am I running away? And I turned around, we fought each other, we become best mates for 2 weeks. Then I realized they were actually idiots. So I don't want to be their friend.
Well, that's the thing as well, right? But this is the thing. There was something about you, Jace, that they saw and they were like, is this the one? Is this the one that's going to be more vulnerable? And I guess it's, a bully's going to go around the playground and start pushing people off swing sets, but there's always going to be that one that turns around and just gives them a knock, and they're like, okay, so that's not the person that I can make myself feel like I'm in power and control, because they've fought back. They're not the vulnerable party here. So bullies will always go for someone that are weaker than them. So when we were talking about what you're doing, Jace, like giving people that self-confidence and getting them like physically ready for that sort of thing, it takes away that level of vulnerability. And bullies will be like, well, that's too hard. I'm going to go for someone that I know that I can perpetrate against, because at the end of the day, perpetrators don't just perpetrate for the sake of it. They are doing it for a reason, whether that's conscious or subconscious. It's still to get a need met. And unfortunately, them getting their need met is not okay. It's not a good behavior that they're engaging in.
So it's addressing it on both sides. So is that something that schools should? Is that something schools allowed to do? Can the school come in and psychoanalyze the bully and say, hey, here's how we can help you, buddy? Like
I
what?
get, yeah. And Jace, this is the thing. Like, I guess when I see bullying within a space like that, I'm always curious to why. Why is this child acting the way that he is? Because, like, if there was everything was hunky dory and mum was Betty Crocker and dad was like the most attentive dad in the world, taking him out to baseball games all weekend, we wouldn't have a bullying problem. Okay, there's clearly something going on where the child is feeling he or she needs that need met. But I feel like with schools, um, I guess they do recognize that. I guess they recognize that bullying is I guess a symptom of something so much bigger. But I also think that they're in a space where I'll use an example. I had a young person come to me and say, I'm being bullied at school, and unfortunately, an assault happened at school, and they told the relevant people what had happened and that the assault had happened, and they said, well, I want to do something about it. I want to report this is not okay, this is not okay behavior. And the response from the school was, like, this person is actually going through a lot, and I feel like if we kind of make them accountable for the behavior right now, something might happen, like they might harm themselves, or they might do this, or they might do that. So I guess it's kind of walking that line, Jace, is like, yes, we do need to make them accountable for their behavior, but we also need to keep them safe. But it's never like, so what did what did the victim hear? The victim hear, I'm not taken seriously, I'm not getting justice, I'm not seeing my needs met. You're thinking about my perpetrator and meeting their needs, but what about mine? Like, I'm the victim here. And so many times in schools, I think that they do look at that and they're like, okay, well, if this person's being bullied, we'll just move them, like they're the problem. Whereas we really do need to be looking at the bully and going, where is this behavior stemming from, mate? Like, what can we do to be assisting with that? And I think it was Queensland Education that brought in this thing called the restorative justice program, where they've used it a lot within prisons as well, where the victim does have a space to go and confront their bully and say, okay, this is how your behavior has impacted me. This is how I felt when you were behaving this way against me. And this was the ramifications of it, because sometimes there are really, really big ramifications. There could be self-harm, there could be suicidal ideation. And unfortunately, there has been people who have ended their life by suicide because of bullying. So your behaviors have impacted me in this way. So having that space to confront and go, do you really understand how your behaviors have impacted me? And so it also gives that bully the space to hear that, to hear how their behaviors have impacted on somebody else. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. The bully does also need to be in a space of self-reflection and to be able to hear that as well. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not there yet. But at least it gets the cogs turning that, oh crap, my behaviors do have an impact on people.
Yeah.
And we also see the ripple effects of it. Like, I was doing counseling for a wee person who had lost their sister to suicide, and it was suicide due to bullying. And now they're needing counseling. Now they're needing to know, how do I move on from this? How do I move on with such regret and hurt and grief and anger and all of those emotions that stem from what bullying can do to people? So it is really, if I was to speak to parents about how we kind of fight this head on, it really is, your children need to know that you're in their corner and that you're their advocate, that you're going to go to that school, you're going to fight for them, you're going to get their needs met, you're going to get their voice heard, they're going to have a space at the table, and that they're going to be taken seriously. Because not only does that see action, but it shows your kid, hey, my parents are here for me no matter what. Like, they
Yeah.
will back me 10 toes down. They're going to be that person for me. It creates safety, it creates security, it creates a beautiful, healthy, strong attachment. And that's what we want to see children and parents, you know, but sometimes it's don't take no for an answer. Like, this is what we need to see, and always recommend, is restorative justice an option for us? Is this an opportunity that we can have these big, courageous conversations with one another to see how this is going to look moving forward? And what is your policy about dealing with bullying? Like, is it a one strike you're out policy? Is there suspensions? Is there expulsions? Or is there the space where, you know, this is an educational moment? Like, I heard a really great teacher explain this as, like, you know, in an educational system, we tell people how to write a sentence, how to spell a word, how to read a book. We also need to teach children how to behave, and what behavior is acceptable and what's not acceptable, because if they don't know, they don't know. So giving that bully the opportunity to learn that their behavior is not okay is a really powerful tool. So we need to be looking at that as well. Like, we need to teach our children what good behavior looks like.
Yeah. There's
it's a really big-winded, like.
Yeah. As you're talking, like, I've got some clients that are in the process of these things happening. So there's some in my brain. I always tell people I'm talking to, it's like, if it looks like I've gone off in the distance, I'm just filtering everything through. And I am. I'm putting it in my filing system, and I've got ticking off some boxes that there's some kids that stuff's in the process of happening. You know, they're doing all of those things. I'm like, I get to go home and I'm kind of, hey, guess what? She said you did this right, and you did this right, and you did this right. Like, being there for them, proving that they have a safe place at home, mum and dad are on side, has got to be a really. I can imagine having all of that crap happening, and then you come home and mum and dad, from a kid's perspective, don't give a crap, or they gloss over it, because how do you deal with something like that? What do you do? How do you, like, you've got to work that out on your own, and it's such a
space of helplessness as well. Like, when your kid comes home and goes, oh, mum, or dad, I'm experiencing this at school, like, there's either one or two reactions. Like, you go, oh, let me at him, you know, or it's kind of like, well, what did you do? What did you do to cause this? You know what I mean? And we do find that a lot, I guess, in that space of can I use the term revenge pornography on here, or?
It's not a swear word.
Okay. So we do see that in a space of, if there is, like, non-consensual illicit material being sent behind, like, you know, within the schoolyard. And I think that's something that's happening more and more frequently, is that, you know, a young person can consensually share an image of themselves, and then that relationship goes sour, and then all of a sudden that image is all around the school, you know. And then it's very easy for parents to slip into that space of going, you bloody shouldn't have taken that image, like, you know, this is on you. Okay, but, like, we've got to also recognize that young people don't have this part of their brain fully developed at that time. They're wanting love, they're wanting care, they're wanting to know that people get them and accept them. Again, thinking about caveman brain, if we want acceptance by our tribe, this is what we have to do. If I have to send a picture of me in my front, then this is going to be acceptable in my tribe. So we've got to think about it in that context, and also be going, well, just because you've done that or engaged in this behavior did not mean that you should be shamed for that. It did not mean that you should now have everyone in the school has seen what you look like naked. So I think that's it's a really hard space for parents, because there is that level of disappointment that this has happened, and we really do need to be looking at, like, who's the bad guy here, and that bad guy is the person who has distributed that material, you know, without consent. So that's another tricky space, I guess, where parents really have to navigate this. It's not something that was around, I guess, when you and I were at school, Jace. So it is kind of moving with the times and showing this support where it's like, okay, I'm going to give you the education, the psychoeducation that you need about, self-respect and respecting your body and engaging in this behavior in, a more healthy way. But also we've got to get the bad guy here. And that bad guy is the person who's done this. So yeah, it's
So,
very multifaceted.
so on a parenting perspective, it's when the child is coming in and for a support or a carer
Yeah.
or whatever, when they're coming in with that information, being on side first.
Yes.
So being,
Yeah.
okay, cool. What can I do to make sure that you know that you're not getting kicked out of the tribe? So
Yes.
you know that
Yes.
you're not going to die by our hands from this.
Yeah.
We're going to hold you in here. Maybe later on we might talk through some etiquette and
Yeah.
ways to and maybe not to
Keep
that
ourselves safe. Yeah.
keep ourselves
Yeah.
safe. But first and foremost is to be on side.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
And this is the thing with parenting as well, Jace, is like, I think as a parent, we always beat ourselves up when we don't get something right. And at the end of the day, parenting does not have a manual. I am very, very blessed that I have 5 children. And trust me, I have made plenty of mistakes with all of my children. But I always use this example, and it's, I guess, it's one of those examples that I use for both parents and young people. I had an esky in between 2 of my children, and I said to them, I was like, you have to hold that esky when we go around a corner, because otherwise it's going to go on the ground and ice is going to go everywhere and I'm going to be cranky. Okay. So I've said to them that this is what has to happen. Go through the Macca's drive through. Obviously, you're doing the big U. And of course, what happens, Jay? Esky goes on the ground, ice goes everywhere. That esky had no business being between my children. It should have been on the ground in the first place, but of course I didn't. And my daughter is so upset and she's crying and she's like, Mom, I really tried. I really tried to keep the esky stable. And I said, you know what? Sometimes I don't think you do try. And I'm like, oh, what have I done? So I have that big breath in, don't I, Jace? And I pull over, I get out of the car and I go, you know what? I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry that I've yelled at you. That was about me. That wasn't about you. But what I can promise is that I'm going to try and be better next time, because I can't fix what I've just done, but I can try and learn from this and I can be better. I'm the one who has to change my behavior here.
yeah.
So with parents, I guess when we do mess up, and we're always going to mess up, we can get stuck in that space of going, I'm a crap mom. I've done this. I've done that. Da, 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 da. No, okay, we've made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. How are we going to be better next time? How can we be that consistent, safe person moving forward and not getting stuck and bogged down in the space of what we've done wrong, but what can we do right in the future? So
But
I guess, yeah.
that's but it's being a PT, being my first real business working for myself. The PT
Yeah.
teaches you a lot, specifically about failure. Failure is good. Failure and mistakes, failure. I'm putting the parallel there, but
Yeah.
failure is a platform to improve. So in a gym, you're intentionally working. You should be intentionally working towards failure. So if you can lift 10 kilos easily, you're going to be going for 12 and a half or 15 kilos to get to like, I can't do any more. And your body has to adapt. It goes, okay, well, when it's healing, it's coming back, going, okay, so look at all these tears in the muscle. We're going to repair that a little bit stronger because clearly they're going to make me keep doing this over and over again.
Mm.
So I'm going to get a little bit stronger. So we're working towards failure. So failure is not a bad thing if you improve because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you lift that 10 kilo to failure and then you come back next week and you lift that 10 kilo to failure, like are you learning from it? Are you improving?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
use that and go, okay, so next time I'm going to do a little bit better. And what I said from what you were saying there, that you've come back in and you've also modeled to your daughter owning your mistakes. So
Yeah.
she's got some learning potential from opportunity there for that as well. So
Yeah.
she's seen it's like mum was mean to me. Mum's fault. It's okay. Oh, okay. So that's how I should act when something's my fault. I'm not
Yeah.
blaming other people. Mum showed me that what I should be doing is owning my mistakes.
Yeah.
So there's, sorry, I've gone off on like
Oh,
three
no,
different
no, that's perfect, because
tangents.
I was going to say that, like, and this happens so much within the whole span of childhood, right? And then, early adolescence and adolescence, and then young adults. And, I've got the spectrum of children. So my eldest turns 22 this year. Yay. And my youngest turns 5. So I really do
Oh
have the
wow.
gamut. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess my elder children as well, like my daughter, she's 14 now, and she, like, when she's having a time or when she's dealing with something, like a good example is grief and loss. And we recently lost a pet. And she was upset and she was angry and she didn't understand why, unfortunately, our beloved guinea pig passed away. And she was having that really big trauma-based response. She was entering fight mode. She was like, "We're crap pet owners. You should be
Um,
ashamed of yourself." Ah! And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to have these big feelings, because you're grieving and you're hurting and you're missing your wonderful, guinea pig and stuff. And that's okay. It's okay to be in this space, right, in the here and now. And unfortunately for my kids, they have me as a parent. So then they'll respond with, "Don't psychoanalyze
yeah,
me."
they know. They know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest, like, humbling moments for me was when, I think, I can't remember what I said, but I was saying to my second eldest son, it's like, "I was really proud of you in this space. Like, you really held this space." And my daughter's sitting there, "You really held this space." Like, such a psychologist thing to say. "Oh, you're holding space."
Did he hold the space?
He definitely held that space. I said, "I'm really proud of the growth that you held in that space." Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, it's just kind of, I guess, understanding that we're not always going to get it right, but if we're just trying, and if we're trying to show our kids that we are always going to be that safe place to land, and we believe them, and that we're always going to back them 110%.
Yeah.
But I guess it's also, for parents of bullies as well, like understanding how that impacts them, and how that impact, like, why their child is behaving the way that they are, and how they can assist them to make better behavioral choices. That's a tricky space. That's a tricky space. Yeah.
You're dealing with potentially it's something that they're learning that at home. They're learning that how do you get into and some parents want their kids to be like that.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
kids
If
they're like,
you,
no, I want you to be this way. That's good. Be
yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
It's not strong. That's making strong is going up and finding the bigger guy.
Yes, yeah. But also, like, if, dad's getting his needs met by yelling at the postman, like, what's that modeling? That is modeling that
Yeah,
I get my needs met by being that aggressive person. And unfortunately, we do see that in young males, because young males need to understand what masculinity is and what it means to be a man. And if that has been kind of implied that masculinity is supposed to be like, like, I'm a big tough man, and I need to be that protector, and I need to be that provider, and I need to be, this big tough ogre of a person. Yes, there is that part of being a man, but it's also like, how do you solve problems? How do you resolve conflict? It can't just be by yelling and screaming until someone backs down. Like, that's not healthy behavior. What we need to look at is, like, how you resolve, big problems, and, still keep that pride. And, it's something I think that this younger generation, oh my goodness, Jace, like, they have such access to information, and they, have this ability to, have these big courageous conversations, right, about what it means to be a man, and what it means to be a woman as well. And yeah, I feel like they're really going to be the big breakers of a lot of intergenerational trauma, let's say. I think they're just wonderful. They're pretty cluey, our Gen Zs.
And so you think that's because, or partly because of that information availability, the fact that
Yeah.
they can go on and get those answers, the things that they need, and they're getting to a point. I'm guessing it's taken a few generations to understand how much BS is on the internet, and having that bit of
Yeah.
filter and having it explained to filter by the older ones. To,
Yeah.
hey, don't
Yeah.
believe this, or here's how you critically think, and
Yeah, and like just being able to access that. I remember when we first got the computer in our family, and it came with like Microsoft Encarta, and it was like a digitized version of an encyclopedia, and we still had all the encyclopedias in a bookshelf, right? But we could like access all of this information, and I was just thinking to myself, oh, I think that's why I got into IT. I was like, oh my God, this machine has changed my life. um, but kids can do that with something that's in their pocket,
yeah,
so they do have so much access to information. And I think the biggest question, like the reason why the younger generation is the way that they are, is they do ask questions. They're very curious. It's not like, I guess, I mean, it's probably older generations. So we're talking like Gen X and baby boomers and the silent generation. Is kind of like, well, this is what this looks like. Oh, why does it look like that? Because it is. Don't ask too many questions. Like, yeah, this
yeah.
is what this looks like. Okay. And you're kind of taught to be small and to not have a voice and to not, ask too many questions because you don't want to upset anybody. But Gen Z don't have that. They're just like, no, I don't care how many people I upset. I want to know why. I really want to
Yeah,
know why we're in the situation we are. I want to know why this works. I want to know. Yeah, it's a pretty awesome thing.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I've got an inquisitive mind, so I like that for somebody will say something, and I'm like,
But why?
what is it? Why? Why makes you wise, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to ask the
That
whys to get the
curiosity is,
whys.
yeah.
It's yeah, and then I get asked a lot of interesting things by my clients, and I need to know the answers. I'm like, hey, look, I don't know the answer to that, but Google
It takes a big person
it.
to say, I don't know, as well. I think that's a beautiful thing as well. If someone comes up to you and says, why is the sky blue? And you're like, oh, I really don't know that, but I will find out and I will tell you next time.
And that's the thing. It's a win for everyone that way.
Yeah,
Win for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah,
Um, Now, getting into that, so we've looked at a bit of what's happening, what happenings from bullying, uh,
yeah.
and we started looking at a bit about the bully themselves. Um, we'll get why how. So these are the bits that I edit out. But why do I? I've got these bits. They're not like I can see my voice patterns, and it just goes word. Like that's how my brain's thinking to ask this question. I don't know what I'm processing. Like, don't say anything silly. I say plenty of silly stuff. Um, Okay, so what I'm asking is if looking at the bully themselves, say a parent of theirs or somebody that knows them, what's some nudges or some ways that we can impart some information on them to help them be less bully-like? Is that
That's a great one because, like, I guess when I see clients in the clinic, that have experienced bullying, I will obviously hold that space and validate them and say, what you're experiencing is not okay. However, we can't be in control of the behavior of others, right? Like, I can sit here and I can say, yeah, that's not right. That's not okay. But I'm not going to change your experience because I'm not actually talking to the bully. I'm not talking to the person who's actually causing you to feel the way that you're feeling. And that's really, really difficult. And I mean, even we see that with, I guess, toxic family environments and things like that, as well as like having those conversations with young people where, like, mum and dad aren't meeting some need in their life. And it's like, well, how are we going to have those conversations? But with bullying, you can't just go up to the bully and go, mate, why are you acting like a silly goose? Like that's not going to work at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's those moments in time, and I think there's been a really big highlight of that is like calling out bad behavior as you see it. And there's those ads about I guess they're those toxic masculinity ads about like when you recognize someone, behaving badly, going, hey, mate, that's not it. Like, that's not okay,
Yeah.
and like being courageous enough to speak out. And I always have those, I guess, those conversations with my children. I'm like, if you see or hear or smell or feel bullying happening around you, how would you respond? And, I think my kids do reflect on that space and go, would I speak up? Would I feel brave enough to speak up? Because that opens you up to vulnerability, that opens you up to bullying as well.
Mm.
um but we do need to make that the norm, Jace. We do need to make that I can't behave in a bullying manner, because there's always going to be that person that's going to keep me accountable for my behaviors. So if we kind of shift that dynamic in our society where people are actually being held accountable for their behaviors, we will see bullies kind of get their needs met in other ways, and it's not going to be through hurting others. But we're a long way. We're a long way off that. So I guess the conversations that you would have is having those conversations with your kids. Like, what would you do if like little Billy down the street was picking on someone, like, and you saw that and you knew that it wasn't okay? Would you feel like, you know, would you feel courageous to speak up and go, yeah, mate, that's not it? And if not, why not? Like, what would you need to kind of be courageous, because you know that behavior is not okay? But yeah, I guess with again, like when we're talking about behaviors, it's like, how do we teach a bully not to be a bully? Like, this is an educational moment. They're trying to get a need met. They're doing it in a bad way. How do we get their need met? How do we make them feel safe and secure and feel like they're in control of their environment without bullying? So what's that going to look like? So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very again a very multifaceted kind of question there, but it is really about holding people to account with their behaviors. Like, there needs to be accountability. And if I guess that's being modeled like from top down as well. Like, if there is a behavior in the household where the head of the household is not taking accountability for their behavior, that's going to be pretty hard for a child to understand that we can't act like silly gooses. Like, there's going to be someone who's going to be like, that's not okay, that's really not
Yeah.
okay behavior. Yeah.
And that's where the strength is. The strength is
Mm.
standing up to the dragon, isn't it? Not being the dragon.
Exactly. But the other, I guess, the side of the coin as well is, I hate using the term we have to build resilience within our young people, because resilience, I guess, is a trauma-based response in itself. But, you know, when we say to people who, I don't like to use the term victim, so I'm going to say people who have experienced bullying, if they've experienced bullying, like, how do we teach them that this isn't about them? This isn't a behavior. It's not the way that you look. It's not the way that you sound. It's not the way that you exist within the world. Okay, this is a problem with the bully. The bully is just hurting so much that they want to hurt other people, and that's really not okay. So when we talk about resilience, we're talking about that level of self-reflection, where if they're being bullied, you can turn around and go, I actually feel so much sadness and pity for you, because, like, why would you be behaving that way if you were okay inside of that little body of
I can
yours?
just imagine them like, what? I'm being mean to you. What, you pity me?
Yeah.
Hang on. And
Yeah, kind
I
of kill
suppose,
them with kindness,
yeah,
kind of, yeah, because it's that space of like, I think there's like a lot of YouTube videos about it, when like someone's bullying, going, ha, that's a good one. Oh yeah, you're right, I do have a weird haircut. Or, oh yeah, no, good feedback, I'll take that in, like, and just kind of disarming that narrative, and then they kind of go, what the bloody hell, I'm not getting the reaction that I'm expecting from
Yeah.
you. I'm not having that. And I used to work at front of house for a like a Comic-Con, and and I used to say to people, if like you had a attendee that was acting a bit aggressive, like the first thing you do is just don't engage and just put your hands up. And then if you see someone engaging with someone and they've got their hand up, I want you to go over to that person. I want you to put your hand up. So there's like 10 people in front of this aggressive person with their hand up. And then the aggressive person is going to be like, what are you doing? What are y'all doing standing around with your hand up? That's weird. And then they're just going to de-escalate and go away. So it kind of disarms that, like, why was I angry again? And then, I can come in and have that conversation with them about, what's the matter? Why are you cranky? Oh, you didn't get to see a Dungeons and Dragons panel. I apologize for that, So like just kind of disarming that, because it really is, the bully is looking for that reaction. It's
Okay.
Bullies kind of feel comfort, unfortunately, in chaos. Bullies feel comfort within conflict, because I guess that's how their world around them looks. If you've been in a space of abuse, and we find this a lot with people who have experienced domestic violence or domestic abuse, and they're in that relationship, they leave that relationship and go into another relationship. And I said, what would it be like if you were in a relationship and your partner came home and rubbed your feet every night and said, how was work, love? Oh my goodness, that Sharon from accounts sounds like a horrible, tell me more about Sharon. Oh, I made you dinner, by the way, and I'm just really interested. You'd be like, what is going on? I do not understand this feeling. I do not get this at all. So there's an uncomfortability there. You deserve that. You deserve to be treated with respect and validation, but it can feel uncomfortable if you've never been exposed to that. So if a bully is sitting there in a space expecting you to be combative and confrontive and you're not, then that's going to feel uncomfortable for them, and going, yeah, you're not the one. Well, I'm just going to move on with my life.
Yeah.
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 I
How
think once
about,
again, we've gone off on a tangent.